On the ground right now is our main anchor, News 4 San Antonio's Randy Beamer. He's been right there in the thick of it. You caught your own video of people breaking those glasses, breaking those entrances, that vandalism, that property damage. I'm looking behind you right now. There's not a lot of people on the streets anymore. What have you been seeing for the past hour or so?
Well, they've been pushing people back, basically away from the Alamo. We are, if we can step into the street, Darius, and show people. This is on Houston Street. It's empty. That's the Emily Morgan Hotel. They're right down on Alamo Plaza. And the group originally that was protesting there, or at Travis Park, again, this started as a very, very peaceful protest, maybe a couple of thousand or more people at Travis Park, went over to the police station, came back. And then some of the elements came over here, or a good number of them, in different waves. And as I talk here, we're going to show you some of the things around here. So those groups that came over in different waves throughout the evening added energy, as they would put it, and this didn't start happening until about 9 and 9:15, and it started happening first when there were people that confronted police in front of the Alamo, and police had pushed them back just basically away from the sidewalk. And so then they ran over to River Center, down toward Commerce. Took them a while. Other people ran after them, didn't know what was going on. Anytime anybody has been running down here, then there's a big group that runs after them no matter what. They don't know what's going to happen. And a few hours ago, a couple of hours ago, you could still go in Alamo Plaza. It was fine. It was mostly peaceful. And then there were some people throwing things in the crowd. Now, when I was over on, I believe it was Commerce Street, and they were breaking into the windows there at Alamo Plaza. You can show what's over here. When I was over there, some of the people broke into a door, went in, but got a fire extinguisher apparently, set that off, and then made it seem like there was smoke and tear gas, and ran out yelling smoke and tear gas. Basically what happened is different groups have been running around at different parts at the edges of downtown. So the people that you see over here, the officers, they are now kind of the outer group here. We're within the perimeter of the police, which has moved out from Alamo Plaza. The group, I believe, has dispersed, that Texas Freedom Force. And by the way, when they said they were defending the cenotaph, they don't want the cenotaph moved. That's the same group that has protested there before, the ones with the long guns there today. There was only a few dozen of those, and that was what I think everybody was initially concerned about. There was going to be some kind of confrontation there. And there was shouting and yelling and whatever, but there was also some dialogue. And about that time that dialogue ended and turned to shouting, that's when people got into running down toward River Center and back. Again, if you're just joining us, the mayor has called for a curfew at 11:30 for downtown all over. Want to show you as we look down Houston Street here. This is what has happened when police were busy in other parts of downtown, like down south of the River Center, where they had reports of people breaking glass. Then there were other people up here. So there's been different groups that have done this. This is the old Rocket Fizz. I don't know if it makes it easier or harder, but most of downtown is empty because not all the big hotels, but some of the big hotels have been empty. And so nobody is down here. So a curfew is going to be much easier to enforce. And this is, again, one of the tourist businesses here that have just been trying to open up again. So we expect to be having a news briefing at Public Safety Headquarters within 20 minutes or so. But, it's sad to see. I don't think anybody that was down there at that peaceful protest, or even at the Alamo, expected this. I will say police had prepared for this, and they had the bigger number of officers kind of out of sight. So there wasn't this massive show of force at the Alamo until there was a big, massive group there, and they wanted to keep the two groups apart, the Freedom Force and then the protesters. So now what we're seeing is people moving away from the Alamo and La Jolla down Houston Street toward the Majestic, and this is all police officers. Within the past 45 minutes or so, there was a good hefty smell of tear gas, and that moved a lot of the people out, made it easier for police to push out. As you look at that police little convoy there heading down west toward Houston. That's where the public safety headquarters is. That's where there's going to be a briefing. And Darius, if we turn right here, again, we're inside the perimeter as police have moved it out farther from downtown. That's up toward Travis Park. And as he's been showing you, inside here, they're moving it out because there's been some damage, turned over some pots and plants. And as some of that video that you saw was when I was earlier with some of the people who were doing the violence, and they were maybe 15, 20 years old, some of them. They weren't that old. Also, I want to show you this, another thing that's happening here. People have been trying to get into their hotel rooms because some of them are open. And Darius, you can get a shot over here. The people at the Marriott Suites, there's some people at all the hotels up and down Houston Street that have been watching from their rooms. But again, this is sad because I don't think anybody expected it. Who was down here earlier, at least they were hoping it wouldn't happen. But police have done their best to deal with this. We see another of our crews here. Robert, back to you.
Hey, Randy, before you go, I wanted to get your perspective on this since you were there on the ground and really witnessed this shift in real time.
Sure.
We were back at the station, say around 5, 6, 7, and we were really giving kudos to San Antonio for behaving so responsibly, marching so peacefully. Do you remember a moment where you thought, this is seeming to shift a little? It wasn't like this. I mean, you were down there ready to say, hey, look at this,
yes.
Peaceful protest. What did you see?
Well, I was on Alamo Plaza where there was always some tension, but it wasn't because of the protesters, against police brutality or involved with George Floyd. Now, those people at Travis Park were peaceful, and at that time they went to the police headquarters and back. I'm not sure when it was, about 7:30, 7:45, maybe around in there, 8 o'clock. There was a big group of protesters that came in from North Alamo Street. They came in loud, they came in angry, and it seemed to incite the rest of the crowd, and that's when things really got tense. That's when the police presence was increased. That's when there was a lot more rhetoric against the police. And that's the kind of thing that kind of amped up the crowd. And those are the people also that seem to stay longer. A lot of the people earlier have long since gone. This has been a long day in San Antonio where it was 90 degrees, now maybe 80 degrees, humid. Some of these people did 6-7 miles earlier, and the people that are around now have to have done more than that if they actually walked to the police station, the Alamo, and back. So that's dispersed the crowd on its own. But I think that was when it turned, and I think that's when you could also sense police just kind of take a collective breath and go, oh no, this is what we had hoped. It's not. Again, it is not as bad nearly as what we have seen in other cities. And I will say that officers that I've talked to have shown restraint, because they're getting it right in their face, and they're at times getting water and other things thrown at them. And the people from San Antonio that I talked to here who are at the protest were yelling at other protesters like, don't do this, that's stupid, it's not what San Antonio is about. It's basically what we heard from the sheriff earlier. But now you see it's kind of it's a tourist attraction here for some of the tourists who, I don't know how to even describe that. It's kind of a surreal scene here.
People are recording
Alejandro
you.
Guzman has been here as well in different areas. Yes. People, I mean, everybody down here had a phone, and everybody was kind of expecting something. I don't want to say but it was like they were waiting for an accident to happen. It was like they were watching a car race and waiting for some kind of possible crash. And we hear a noise, and the group would run. If they hear somebody screaming or yelling, then the group would run. And so this is what's left right now, at least at this part of downtown. And I know at the fringes in different places it may be a different story because the people have gone from just one place to another to kind of avoid being pushed back by the police.
Now, Randy, just to orient viewers and give them some perspective, right now you're, I guess, along East Houston, just down from the Majestic. We saw when you first came on the air, you were in front of a shattered storefront. I'm not sure which business that was, but this isn't the only street where it's like this, right?
No, this, as people have gone through downtown, this is similar to what we saw on Houston Street, right there by River Center Mall, by the down from the church we call St. Joski's, because people went from Alamo Plaza and they went down, and then they did things like this down there. They turned over some of the potted plants. They also vandalized, they sprayed graffiti on some of that new public art project on kind of across from the Hyatt and the Convention Center. And then they went down, and they did very similar things there. So what they did here, they picked up rocks and they threw them into windows. But we haven't seen anything, at least that I know of any fires. We haven't seen anything like that. In fact, the only throwing of objects it was rocks and things like that, of police cars that were going by, and bottles, water bottles that were thrown, some of them from the protesters, and it wound up, some of them at police, but some of them also wound up hitting some of the other protesters, and that's when it was kind of a self-discipline thing. They were saying, no, don't do that, that's not what we are. So this is one of those, and also this is kind of complicated compared to other cities because of this Alamo element and the Cenotaph element and the Texas Freedom Force element. They're not just protesting against the police, but these protesters, saw themselves on the other side as this group, which has been pro-gun, very pro-police.
Randy's shot just went out momentarily. Hopefully, we will get him back soon. But as you saw him walking up and down that stretch of East Houston, you could see the shattered windows in those storefronts. You could see, he said, that the majority of the people who were taking part in that vandalism, he witnessed with his own eyes, but also with his own camera, were younger people, he said, as young as 15 years old. These were not the people mainly taking part in the earlier portion of the protest, that march, that rally, that Justice for George Floyd rally that started at Travis Park. Again, the mayor, San Antonio Mayor Ron Niren,